Meanwhile, the FBI declined to comment last night on a report of a secret meeting that set up a private line of communication between the President of the United States and Russian President Vladimir Putin. The Washington Post was the first to report the meeting between Trump campaign donor Eric Prince and a Putin confidant just 9 days before the inauguration.
Prince had no formal role in the Trump transition team, but reportedly presented himself as an unofficial envoy for Trump. He also donated over $100,000 to the Trump campaign and is the brother of Education Secretary Betsy DeVos. Now, the White House denied having any knowledge of the meeting, and a spokesperson for Prince released a statement saying, quote, Eric had no role on the transition team and this is a complete fabrication. The meeting had nothing to do with President Trump.
All right, let's bring in Shane Goldmacher. He is Politico's chief White House correspondent, and he joins us now from Washington. All right, Shane, so the optics surrounding this meeting certainly aren't positive for the Trump administration. How many times throughout the course of this presidency are we going to say, look, this just happens to be a coincidence? I mean, the Washington Post, they're not suggesting any sort of illegal activity, are they? But I guess the question remains, what's up with this coincidence?
I mean, it's almost every single workday at this point. There's some kind of a story about Russia and the Trump administration. And again, in this one, we're not talking about illegal issues, but we are talking about the idea that there was attempts at back-channel communications during the transition between the incoming Trump administration and the Putin administration. And that just seems to be the facts. You had this meeting that happened in December, or a phone call, rather, between incoming National Security Advisor Michael Flynn and the ambassador to Russia, that Flynn initially said he didn't discuss certain topics. That turned out to be false. And he has since left the administration. There were questions originally about that. Was this just a one-off? Did they just happen to make that phone call? But it seems over and over there were efforts to either establish some kind of diplomatic back channels or direct channels of communications between Trump and Putin.
Okay, so we don't know what's going to happen with this, but if, say, Mr. Prince ends up testifying in front of a House or Senate committee, possibly, what sort of questions do you think lawmakers would have? What would you want to know?
Well, why was he setting up this meeting? Was he doing it for his own private business interests, which is also possible? But look, yes, he did not have a formal role with the Trump transition, but he was in Trump Tower. He was spotted there multiple times, meeting with Trump transition officials. He was a major donor, and he also is related to one of Trump's cabinet secretaries. So this is not a person with no connections to Trump world. But the sort of secrecy around this, they didn't just have a meeting somewhere. They had a meeting on a small island known for sort of discreet rendezvous in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Now, we don't know who he met with, according to the Post. It was a high-up confidant of Putin. That person has not been named yet. But you want to know, who did he meet with? Why did he meet with him is really the main question. What was his motivations? Was it to establish back-channel communications? Or was he promoting his own business interest and touting himself as someone close to Trump to leverage it for financial gain?
Shane, I follow you on Twitter. We both follow the President of the United States on Twitter. You tweeted a retweet of his tweet, which is a tweet from the Drudge Report. The President retweeted Rice ordered spy docs on Trump.
Question mark?
With a question mark, right? That's the Drudge Report tweet that the President of the United States retweeted. In the midst of these ongoing investigations into Russian meddling, we have learned that during the time in the White House, the former National Security Advisor Susan Rice did ask for names of the Trump team to be unmasked after seeing them referenced in intelligence briefs. Here's the question. What's the significance of that development? And does the reporting bear out that what appears to be happening right now, whoever leaked this story to, I think it was first reported in Bloomberg, it seems to be an attempt by the administration or others who support it to try and backfill the president's tweet about wiretapping.
Right. Sort of some cover here for the president.
Absolutely. And when you talk about unmasking, this is a really complicated topic. Raw intelligence, when it's produced and there's incidental basically surveillance of American citizens, those citizens' names are basically redacted from the reports. So if an American official is reading this, they don't see that the foreign official was talking to a particular named American. It says American X or Citizen X. And so Rice, as National Security Advisor for Obama, has the power to unmask and ask and request the information. Who was this Russian official speaking with? And it sounds like she did this numerous times for Trump officials on the transition. That in and of itself is not a problem. The problem is that some of those officials' names have since leaked, and we just talked about Michael Flynn having discussions with the Russian ambassador. His name came out. He has since lost his job over this. If you unmask someone and then leak their identity, that's a felony, and that's a big problem. So the idea that she was using her powers to see who Russians were interacting with within the Trump campaign in her role as National Security Advisor, this might be a political victory for the Trump campaign to sort of cast aspersions on her interests. It's not necessarily a problem. But if she had a hand in helping those names get out, it's a much bigger problem.
So just for our viewers to be clear, Shane, and this is a really important point, right? The National Security Advisor can ask to see names in an intelligence report. That in itself is not a problem. So the claim of wiretapping is not, it still is unfounded.
Right.
Although if it turns out that she then leaked those names, that's a big deal.
Even the House Intelligence Committee chairman, who's been a big supporter of Trump on this issue, he has said there was no wiretapping of Trump Tower. And when he came forward last week and said, I found new information that there's names that were improperly unmasked, even at that press conference I was at the White House, he said, no, there was no wiretapping of the Trump administration. That has not prevented Trump and his allies and his White House advisors from saying, in fact, he was surveilled and pointing to all this evidence. But Nunes, when he outlined the case, said this was incidental collection and it was legal and incidental. Again, for Susan Rice, the issue would be not just the unmasking of the names, but if she had a hand in those names getting out publicly.
Okay, Shane, one more topic before we let you go. Healthcare. It looks like it may be flickering back to life. The vice president met with members of the House Freedom Caucus. They actually said the meeting was pretty good. What are you hearing?
The idea that Donald Trump and the Republican Party was going to give up on health care after only 18 days of trying seemed maybe a little over-optimistic for Democrats. They continue to have discussions. I'm pretty bearish on the possibility they're going to pass something soon, or even if they can muscle something through the House, that it's something that could have passed muster in the Senate. The plan, remember, that the House Republicans were pushing, that they fell short on, the Senate had already declared that that was not passing the Senate. So Pence is right now trying to work with both the Freedom Caucus, the sort of far right of the Republican conference, and the Tuesday group, the sort of left of the Republican conference, say, hey guys, can you get together on enough that we can muscle a single package through the House? And they are making progress on that front, but no one involved in those negotiations say there's a deal or even a deal close yet.
Probably going to be a few more of those meetings, I suspect.
Just a bit.
Politico's Shane Goldmacher, thank you so much. We appreciate your time, Shane.
Thanks for having me.